Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. This is a podcast where we discuss the game War Thunder and follow its development. I'm your host, Afonso, and today I'm joined by fellow TAW members. How about you guys introduce yourselves so the lovely viewers can match voices with names?
I'm Korhaka.
Sir Camps, War One's TS.
Just say my name, Reach for the Sky.
And I'm Somewhere.
So the first slide is patch notes. In patch notes, we discuss and cover any patches that have been implemented in the current month. Do a reminder that these podcasts will be monthly, so we discuss everything that happened in this month, and also a bit of a disclaimer. This was recorded on November 23rd. And this month we did get a patch 1.53 Firestorm, which brought us new aircraft and tanks, a tweaked battle rating system, and crew research system, along with new graphics. So, what are your guys' opinions on the new vehicles?
Well, how are you going to have a tank in game that is an amphibious tank and it actually can't swim?
That is a very good point. It's almost as if they've the phrase bolting the stable door after the horse has already gone. It's just bonkers why they haven't thought about that, done it before, and then added the vehicle.
They sold you on the fact, they literally said it was the PT-76 amphibious tank. And then after they announced the vehicle and everybody was already hyped because now we have amphibious vehicles, guess what? It doesn't swim.
Yeah,
it's an incomplete feature.
Unfortunately, it just seems to go along with Gaijin's obsession with more is better, which definitely isn't always the case. So often they're adding new vehicles and new variants of vehicles without actually focusing on what's already there. Like the PT-76, without its amphibious abilities, it's really nothing special. It's got a bad gun, it's got no armor, it's not very fast. So without the amphibious feature, it's just a draw to possibly get more people interested that otherwise wouldn't have looked at the game.
On the fact of its gun, I remember a very long time ago when the Ground Forces beta actually came out in the alpha. I read somewhere in the forums by one of the War Thunder developers we're never going to add an autocannon, aka drum-fed like the 1390s that we all know from if you guys play World of Tanks or Bad Chats. Here's the thing. The PT-76 historically actually has...
Doesn't the Panzer II?
Yeah, the Panzer II.
The Panzer II was one of the first tanks in the game.
That's different. That's an aircraft cannon.
Okay.
I suppose it'd be sort of a drum type thing.
Yeah, a drum or an auto-loading feature. But the actual PT-76 in real life had an autocannon. It would reload itself, and it had like a 4-second reload.
Well, frankly, I think it needs it, because at the moment it's a pretty bad tank.
Actually, same for the American new top-tier light tank.
T-92.
That was an autocannon too, the T-92.
At least it's small and fast. The PT-76 is neither of those. It really doesn't have a place. I just wish they would have... it's more of a novelty. It's style over substance, and that seems to be the calling card of this game more and more these days. Going for style over substance. But they have promised that it will be amphibious, but yeah. I don't know why they didn't just delay it until the amphibious feature was ready.
I think them releasing the first British premium tanks would have been enough of like a meal for the patch.
Yeah.
There's enough content right there, considering they just added 4 British tanks, which a lot
they
of
the
are
community... all premium for 80
they
euros.
They are, but...
And they're very expensive.
Yeah, they are.
As I said, 80 euros if you're in Europe.
And that's cheaper than buying all 4 individually in the first place, so it's still expensive.
Yeah.
Well, the Achilles, but it has a 17-pounder on it, but it's a 3.7 in realistic. Which is ridiculous for a 17-pounder.
I did buy all 4 of the British tanks via Steam, so I was unable to do the massive purchase from the Gaijin website, which kind of made me mad that it wasn't on Steam.
Yeah.
But honestly,
you know how game companies are with Steam. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not trying to shame anyone that's bought them, but it's just typical of Gaijin to sort of put a carrot on and dangle it on the end of a fishing line and say, "Oh, look, new British tanks." Oh, but they're behind a paywall, and it's just
a very big one.
Yeah.
I distinctly remembering them promising us tanks by British tanks, like the actual tank line, by 1.53.
Yeah.
I think they probably
not a line
encountered
yet.
issues. I think they encountered issues, so they only released the premium tanks.
Yeah, well, if that is the case, I mean, they could have just released a small regular tree. If they literally just translated these 4 normal tanks, premium tanks, into normal tanks, they could have at least started, put the A13 Cruiser at the start of the tree. But,
Or just done like the Era 1 vehicles or something.
Yeah, like they did with all the other nations when they first introduced them.
Do you remember how they released the American tanks? They released it all at once, like one whole
Yeah, they
like,
saved
from
a
a
lot.
medium
There
tank
was
down.
there was 1 or 2 premiums on the Russian line, I think it was.
Oh, there was the M4. There was a German M4. That was the actual first American tank. I have that.
Yeah.
It's like considered the rarest tank in the game now, even though it sucks.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Yeah. And then they nerfed it a couple of times, and now no one drives it.
Great.
No, because no one, like the people who actually play the game from back in that day, didn't buy it, and the people who did buy it probably don't play the game anymore.
No. Well, there you go. Nice camo, but yeah, I don't remember the last time I saw one. Probably about more than a year ago.
Oh, it's in my actual German lineup for that group. It's a 4. Oh my god, 4.3.
What is it? An M4A2?
Yeah, no, it is a M474-8 Alpha. I don't know what the
Okay.
Alpha stands for. Probably because it was an Alpha closed. I don't know.
So
Actually,
what do
I
you
think
guys,
you could purchase this tank when it was in closed alpha, but let's get off this back onto the patch.
So what are you guys' thoughts on the new maps that we got? Advance into the Rhine and Stalingrad.
I haven't had a chance to play Advance to the Rhine yet. It hasn't appeared in circulation.
I
for
have
me.
played Advance to the Rhine in the T-34 versus Panzers event. I really like the map. Better than Berlin, but I get that
I think
feel.
it's... Yeah, looking at the screenshots that War Thunder posted on the website, it seems that it's what I hoped Berlin would be. Because Berlin is sort of like... Berlin's more like an infantry map. Like, if you imagine infantry was in this game,
Yeah.
Berlin is very small, it's very tight. Frankly, I think in reality, tanks wouldn't go near terrain like that because they'd be...
They would, but they'd
Destroyed.
have a lot
Not
of
without
infantry.
infantry. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
The
thing is,
issue
well,
though with those new maps is, I must admit, I tend to, if I'm on War Thunder, I'll tend to do a lot of early to mid war props on realistic, just random realistic public games, and I must admit, it's not very often that I see the new ones actually come up in circulation. Is it because are they on just
They
exclusively?
might be tank only. I'm not
I was
sure.
gonna say,
tank
is it only tanks?
Unless you have a tank in your lineup, that's the only way your prop is going to see
Ah,
these.
right.
Because I just joined the custom battles for Advance to the Rhine, and I'm looking at the map setup. It's a very well laid out map overall.
Advance in the Rhine, I felt like, personally, when I bought my British tanks, it is one of the best maps if you are in the Black Prince, because if you're in a
Oh, I
heavy
imagine it would
tank,
be.
when you're in a heavy tank and a tank with a good gun, you absolutely can dominate those larger area spaces in the map, or hold down one of those tight, narrow
And it's a map where you
roads.
don't need speed, which that doesn't have.
Oh, the 17-kilometer-an-hour speed is enough speed on the Black Prince.
Beastly.
Yes, leisurely stroll.
I have played Stalingrad, and I have to say, the amount of historical research they did for it, the archives, they dug into the archives and got historical photos. As a piece of artwork, like as a creation in a 3D world, it's a fantastic piece of work. The map itself, well, I've only played it twice, I think. It is a bit washed out with the amount of snow, because the snow is very bright and it's very white.
I give
which is
10 out
realistic,
of 10
course.
for the map because I destroyed a tractor factory completely. Like, I ran over every tractor in the factory.
Again, it's not really the sort of map I would envisage when I picture a tank game. You know, it's very tight, close quarters, narrow streets.
That's
The sort
the
of map
impression
you'd
that,
find on Red Orchestra 2.
that's the impression I got. It's like it's very narrow, but then in the middle of it, you've got like these long sort of like lines of fire, like all the way from
Yeah,
one
that's
end to
quite
the
cool.
other. So you're sort of restricted that you'll find everyone sort of filters around the sides and just completely avoid, if they've got a brain, completely avoids the middle bit.
Well, that's every War Thunder map.
Well, yeah, but it's this sort of a game map where you'd expect anyone in infantry to just all sorts of places to hide with anti-tank weapons.
That would be
Yeah.
one thing that I would love if you were able to carry infantry on your tank and just deploy them like artillery, and they just hold down an area in those tight maps, and they're like anti-tank infantry. Oh, it would cause so much havoc.
I feel bad for the infantry riding around on my Hellcat.
It
Or my
wouldn't.
T-34. Full speed,
Eve-
try and hold on.
Eventually, I believe that Gaijins have to, because the way they explained it is once their tank lines for all of the trees have been flushed out, then they're going to move on to naval combat. So we're going to start stuff filtering. And then
I'm sure
once
we'll
they're
get
flushed
ships
out with naval combat, need a direction to go to. So they say right now they're not going to do infantry, but given enough time,
In the future, I hope they would, in some form, not.
oh, so yeah, I just jumped in a game with my M60 and I'm in advanced
Imagine an
Rhine.
infantry tech tree. That would be interesting.
I don't think it's going to be
conscripts.
that way. I think it's going to be.
It'd be funny.
Like an artillery, like a
Like
modification.
tier 5 fearless Waffen SS or whatever the politically correct equivalent would be for an
I
international.
don't think
game.
it's going to be that bad though.
Yeah.
Like your opposition to War Thunder, I don't think it's going to be that bad.
So, what are you guys' what are you guys' thoughts on the new aircraft that have been implemented? Because we did get a whole swack amount of like P-38s.
I enjoy the P-38. I still think they burn a little bit too easily for my 100%. Like, yeah, this is my go-to plane. But yes, they added another Yak-9.
Ooh,
With
with
the
delicious
bombs?
bombs.
Yeah,
Perfect. I
internal
was
bomb
really
bay.
worried that they wouldn't because the shortage of yaks in this game really gets to me.
But yeah, there's a Yak-9 shortage.
I
There's-
lie awake at night wishing that another yak
There's
would
like a
be brought
hole in
into
the,
war.
the hole in the tech tree is the same as the hole in
There's
my
not
heart.
enough Yak-9s in my life. I need more Yak.
Yeah. They put the P-38K into a. That's going to be what, a gift premium type thing.
No, I believe the P-38K is the one after the P-38I in the tech tree. It's
It
simple
says
slotted.
on the 1.53 patch notes, P-38K limited vehicle will be available during future specials. I think the L and the J are together on the tech tree.
Yeah, I'm just checking now. Yeah, the jet you get the L and the J are both in the standard tree.
Very nice aircraft, which I haven't had a chance to fly them apart from in test flights. But,
Oh, so have you guys experienced this since I'm a heavy tanker in Stalingrad? You usually, if you shoot at a dead tank that's actually part of the map, your round counts as if it's already going through a regular tank.
you mean
As
it
of
goes-
recently with these last two maps, as if they don't actually exist. Same for trains, same for a lot of debris. I realized this after getting shot by a mouse through the front of my tank that I thought I was behind another, like, 3 levels of cover. Concealment cover.
Like something
Yes.
solid.
Do you mean shots going through solid objects?
Yes.
That has happened to me, or at least it seems to happen. Like, there's a dirt mound about the same height as my tank, and there's someone on the other side of it, and they seem to shoot through
I
it
think
and hit
that's
me.
server side, personally.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
I think it's a discrepancy between what you're seeing on the server and what you're seeing
Yeah.
in the client.
Something I think they should really focus on eventually.
Maybe it's
So-
a netcode issue, like Battlefield 4 had for years.
Well, one new plane that we definitely got, which was a personal excitement for me, but is totally broken, is the new American torpedo bomber or
The
naval
Helldiver.
bomber, the TBD-1 Devastator. Have any of you guys
Oh,
flown
yeah.
that already?
No,
I must
but
admit, no.
I know in real life it was an appallingly bad aircraft.
It was, but the thing, honestly, you can outturn Japanese. Plane is just so broken. You don't stall even at 93 kilometers an hour. It's
Oh,
ridiculous.
another plane with an unfinished flight model, I suppose.
See, this is another thing I do not understand. How fast do you guys? And I think there's a severe discrepancies in the stats that they tell you in game. So
the
if
stat
I
cards are
have,
complete nonsense.
well, I'm talking about with crew statistics, reload times, that kind of stuff. Because there's been several times where I'm sitting in my M60, for example, and it has an 8.3 second reload. No dead crew, nothing damaged on the inside, and by some miracle of God, I just got out reloaded by a mouse.
Yeah, there's definitely discrepancies. I know the stat cards are complete rubbish. The turn time, the max speed, the climb rate. Pretty much, apart from... This is the plane stat cards, by the way. The tank stat cards, most of the time, are okay. But the
Other
plane
than
ones
speed,
are
yeah.
awful. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they do the same thing that I believe World of Tanks did. That's the top speed the thing can actually reach going downhill.
Yeah,
Except
they're
they
not very
can't reach that
specific with the
speed even
speed.
downhill.
The
Downhill.
Hellcat got so badly nerfed at speed-wise, I believe it was actually able to go 72 kilometers an hour in real life.
In real life, on a road, I think it was more like 97, 95.
I'm not 100% sure, but it was an extremely fast
On a road
vehicle.
only, of course. Off-road would be less.
Oh, even in semi-decent terrain, it was still an incredibly dangerous vehicle. Speed-wise.
Oh, yeah. Pulling up a Wikipedia page right now. Oh, speed up to 88 kilometers an hour, 55 miles an hour.
So it can travel back in time.
Yeah.
It'll be
It doesn't
explained.
say if that's
Party!
on-road or off-road speed, but yeah.
I'd like to see it going off-road at that speed when it hit a bump.
Well, you'd expect it to be fairly flat, grassy field if it was off-road speed. But yeah, you should expect it in War Thunder, at least on the flat road map, on some maps, like through Poland and other parts of the Rhine, bits of Berlin, you should be getting that speed. But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't even get it downhill.
So back to something more relative than us ranting about this. Since they added the British tanks in, what do you guys think is going to be the top tier British tanks for the heavy? Because you know they do 2 lines, the
Yeah,
heavy and the
Centurion.
medium tank. Which
hope-
Centurion,
well,
though?
It's
I'm
going to
hoping
be
that
it's going to be odd because the Centurion.
Will
In
it be a
real
Cold
life,
War
the
tank?
Centurion line evolved out of the cruiser line, but if you think about it, the infantry tank line is going to be traditionally seen in the war. The infantry tanks were like, you've got the
Churchills.
Matildas, the Churchills.
I think that's going to end up being
that's going
But-
to be the infantry tank and the heavy tank. So you're going to have to somehow jump across.
they will
which is gonna be
eventually. That's what the Black
weird.
Prince slowly is jumping across into a more heavy tank.
Unless they
Well-
have something like the Chieftain in, but that's going to be
No, actually, the Chieftain matches was.
Apparently they are adding that.
I
Quite,
do,
an early
putting a
chieftain
chieftain in?
wouldn't be out of place, I think.
I think so.
Especially since
My
they've added things like
God.
the M60 and the T10.
I do believe British will dominate the lower tiers.
oh yeah.
With the Matildas are going to be like the
Matildas.
Minnie Mouse. They're going to be the Minnie Mouse of tier 1.
As an aside, the Matilda's easily my favourite tank in World of Tanks.
I was going to
Doesn't
say,
die.
and they've got a fearsome reputation in World of Tanks, haven't they?
Yes, it's probably the
Well,
best
you
tier
know
4 overall.
why oh god, I'm dead. You know why the flak cannon, the 88, the Germans originally, the Matildas are the reason why the 88 was discovered to be a decent anti-tank gun, because at the time the Germans didn't have any AT that actually would damage it.
Yep.
So they flipped a 88 flak on the ground and shot it at Matildas.
I think it was accidental, the discovery that the 88 made an excellent anti-tank gun. Because
I think it was.
all-
I think it was out of sheer desperation they shot it.
yeah,
at
it was in
Matilda.
France, and they were about to be overwhelmed, and they thought,
No,
oh,
Africa.
well.
It was in Africa.
Africa.
Was it? Oh, I thought
Yes, it
France.
was.
Okay.
That brings in a key point. When we do get the full lineup of British tanks, I hope to God we get it like an African map of North Africa,
Oh,
some
yeah.
desert map.
Like
Yeah.
Maine.
Oh,
Otherwise, what
Alamein
have we
would be
done
amazing.
grinding all those desert camos?
Yes.
And if you think about it, it would be odd if they didn't, in all honesty, because of the sheer amount of. I mean, there's been lots of games in the past which have as in real life, heavily associated the tank combat that took place in the Western. Because it's been, if you think about it, there's been how many times has it been described where it was the perfect sort of tank environment. You have vast, flat, open plains of nothing, which is perfect for tanks
Oh yeah,
and
so
tank
wasn't
warfare.
the
Yeah.
Todd 2 confirmed? It was, right?
What was that?
So if they don't put something in, it's going to
Called
be a little
to.
bit odd if they sort of try and shoehorn everything into the other maps at first. But and I suppose it gives them, sort of like a blank canvas to put in events and stuff for the Desert Air Force and stuff like that. If you think about the sort of aircraft that they had access to. Going up against the Luftwaffe at that time, I mean, they had like things like a lot of Lend-Lease aircraft coming on, like they had Kitty Hawks and stuff and things like that. That could be
Yeah.
very interesting. So it could be something that they try and expand in the events list. Although I know, as we were talking about before, the events list sort of has its pros and cons.
Yeah, but with the event list, it'd be nice at least to have random battles for sim tanks. I'm sure Gaijin
That would be really nice.
But it's
A
just-
Russian tank with decent gun depression.
Do they
Yeah,
have any though?
each nation's got its
I'm
characteristic
talking.
flaws. And
Russian tanks usually have about 5 to 6 degrees of gun depression
Some
at the
even 4.
most.
it's because they're so compact and low down.
Yeah.
The breach hits against the turret roof.
But no, I would just going back quickly there to the desert thing. I would love just to slowly chug across an open desert plain in my
Yeah.
Matilda 2 and just gently pop away 2-pounder shells at anything that moves in front of me. I can happily do that all day with the brewing vessel going on in the back. That would be lovely.
Okay, I think we discussed a lot about the patch. A few quick things. about the patch, we also did get the new graphics update on water terrain and how it's been greatly increased with the different types of water graphics. And do you guys think this is an early sign on warships to come?
I would say that if I saw more maps being thrown in rotation that actually had water access to the actual map. So I'm playing on jungle right now, and that'd be this is probably like the perfect map for having plane, tank, and ship combat.
Of course.
Yeah, with a big beach. Yeah.
Now we're just going to move on. We gotta keep this show going on. Oh, what was that?
Actually, it was recently added, and no one really said much about it. The actual rangefinder.
Oh yeah.
Rangefinders. If the tank actually had a rangefinder on it, you can now range find targets.
Actually, any tank can. If it didn't have a rangefinder, however, it is limited to 1 kilometer range, and it's just your crew guesses basically.
Okay, now moving on, we are in DevNotes. In DevNotes, we will be bringing forward any news, tweets, or forum posts that the devs have sent out to all the masses. There's been a lack of information, so with this lack of info, we're just going to move on to our next part, which is Rants and Raves. Rants and Raves is where we discuss issues, current or anything that we feel that Gaijin should fix. Do you guys have anything personal you have a grudge against War Thunder on?
Wow, that was a little high.
I know someone was mentioning it.
Russian biased?
Yeah.
There's always going to be Russian bias in this game. I mean, you would see the same if it was an American-developed game. It's just whoever develops the game is going to be the person who makes the stats.
I think in most cases, Russian bias is just a coincidence. I don't think they're deliberately set out, because if you go over to the Russian forums, they complain about like other nation bias. It's just like the Russians. To be fair, for example, the low-tier American planes, the P-47 is battle rating 3.7, I think, and that's the same as the A6M2, and they're definitely not equal in terms of how effective they are. There's examples in every tree of things not being where they should be.
I want an IS-7.
I'm sure that's balanced.
You want to talk about no? If you look at the T10, it has a majority of the concepts of the IS-7. It's not as good as the IS-7. The IS-7, they actually did produce, I think, 2 complete IS-7s, so it's technically not a paper tank.
Okay.
True. And that's one thing that Gaijin does not like is paper.
Despite
tanks,
they keep adding them, especially recently.
Like the E100.
Oh, the Black Prince! Quick, shove it!
How do you get the E100? Yeah.
No, Black Prince is real.
How do you get the E100?
Yeah, but they only made what?
It's
Was
going
it
to be a
7
real
or something?
limited thing.
Still not paper tank.
If it was used, at least you can kind of justify it. But some that are added were not even finished once.
Hold up.
True.
So how do I get the E100? I saw it once. I forgot about it. How do
It's going to be a bit like the LA-174, I imagine. You're going to have some kind of requirements to unlock it. I'm sure it'll probably appear on the tech tree temporarily, and you'll have to grind it quickly.
Yeah, I think some sort of special event, I think they said.
It's not going to be that good. It's going to be kind of funny.
I don't think it'll be as good as the mouse, especially since they're not giving it the 15
Is the mouse good?
The mouse is decent. It's just it has large panels of flat armor.
The E100's got less armor.
It's more mobile,
But
though.
it
It
is
has a better gun.
curved. The armor is curved. And it has
The whole armor is better, I believe. Well, from my opinion, just because of how it's more agile, and the tracks are absolutely massive. But the turret is what I'm going on about.
Yeah, the turret, it's that mouse turret. It's just like a TV2. You just can't work around that turret.
I'm saying they're large, flat panels of barely sloped armor, so it's going to be quite interesting.
It will.
But going back to Russian bias there, and the concept of Russian bias. I've only literally just started grinding down the Russian tree, so I'll let you know how I get on. I'm starting on the Russian aircraft because, in all honesty, there's nothing...
less bias there.
There's only there's a lower percentage of bias here. Look at the pie chart. The Russian the only thing that I've gone for the American tree, the German tree, and the British tree. simply because there's more aircraft there that I've heard about, through studying, battles and things in history, and just things that have genuinely sort of interested me. So, but there's nothing really in the Russian tree that's sort of like, famous fighter from the war. Oh, everyone thinks of the Yak-1. Really? Everyone thinks of the LA-5 dash whatever. It's kind of a weird
Spitfire 109.
Yeah.
They're the two probably biggest ones.
That's it. So I wonder if a lot of players are sort of in that same position where do they go for an aircraft or tanks because of the name, or do they sit and look at stats and think, oh yeah, I'm going to go and give that a whirl? I suspect it's the the first rather than the last.
Yeah, I'm with you. I personally am bad for it. Like, I got so giddy when I found out the TBD Devastator was coming out. I was like, oh, it's Devastator, and I was like, I'm gonna get it. Immediately it comes out, blah blah blah. And I've known a lot of people have done that. Like, one of our friends, Sev War Thunder, he, like, once the Hawker Hunter came out, he just like absolutely was dead set on getting that plane. And it has to be on those big names, those things that you learned in history class that really intrigued you, those planes that were like, oh, that was a really cool plane. And then you come to this game and you're like, oh, I can fly that plane? No. And yeah, that's pretty much everyone's reaction.
And that's maybe why, like, I think the most, going back to the patch notes there, the most recent thing on that, the Sherman Firefly, that had that attraction for me anyway. I mean, I must admit, I'm not a massive fan. I mean, I've got a couple of premium vehicles, but not, I'm not sort of the person that goes mad for anything when they come out.
No,
I'm sort of,
especially for that price.
That's it. Yes, it's got a famous name to it, and it's got a whopping great big 17-pounder that goes through armor like butter. But for the price tag, really?
Here's the funny thing about the Sherman Firefly. People realize that it was the reason why it got its name. Yes, that 17-pounder was turned sideways. It actually was, yes, it was turned sideways in the actual turret for it to fit.
So it would fit in, yeah.
But they actually, after the war, because the Americans wanted to put the 76 HVSS, which is actually in the game right now, and they compared the two tanks, the guns at least. After, in real life, the 17-pounder, after about 1,000 yards, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Its accuracy is...
Only if you're firing Sabo. The standard AP solid shot was perfectly reliable, but definitely early Sabo rounds at that
not even
range,
early Sabo rounds. It's just its accuracy was marginal at distance at best.
I'd like to see your sources for that.
I'd have to pull it back up. I read this whole entire article.
I must admit, I'm not 100. All I've heard from, I just know the only thing I've sort of really heard that sort of stood out in the back of my mind was they'd done an interview with some of the former crew that had been with the Royal Tank Regiment during the campaign in Normandy, and they were talking about how when they first came out in Normandy and they were first available on the battlefield, Fireflies were so popular because they actually had a bit of punch they had a good chance against the newer German tanks like the Panther and the Tiger, and it gave a tank squadron that extra bit of punch in case they came, if they got stuck in any serious trouble. But one of the crew, the loader, was talking about how because it was so sort of bodged, and how everyone knows that it was they actually had to rotate it in the turret to get it in and everything. They'd never really fine-tuned the gun to actually for tank combat, because he said that when the breech block, when the round had been fired and the shell had gone down the barrel, the actual breech block, because of the pressure in the gun, the breech block came back too early, and there was like a light flash that would come out. It wasn't so bad that it would set the ammunition off, but he said it was so bad that you could tell a Firefly crew, because they all had the eyebrows singed off. They would get a flash around the inside of the turret because literally the pressure was so great in the breech that when the unlocking mechanism unlocked the breech on the cannon, they had this flash around the turret, and it would singe off the eyebrows and singe off the hair on their arms and stuff. That just shows you how sort of rushed and. But
It
I
was.
mean, if you can think of how that would be completely unacceptable in any other sort of main production tank at the time. But in order just to get that gun out there, they sort of said, "That'll do." No,
Well,
there you go.
That'll do, Johnny. That'll do.
You gotta
Yeah.
remember at the situation
Typical
they
British
were in.
attitude.
The situation they were in, they had this massive invasion, and they needed something that, like you said, it could give them an extra punch.
Yeah.
But then once the Americans started producing the 76 long barrel Shermans, those Fireflies started to become less and less frequent. As
Yeah.
Yeah, the Easy 8 was
It,
very
it-
devastating.
Yeah, it was a mass production vehicle that didn't need external modifications, as in the sense of the British taking a Sherman and then slapping an anti-tank
Yeah.
gun in there.
Exactly.
It was already pre-made.
Oh, here's something I've recently noticed. Remember how case tanks, tank destroyers, if you'd blow the ammo rack, nothing would happen to it? Like, where if you blew the ammo rack on an actual tank, the turret would fly off?
Yeah.
Casemate tanks, it just happened because I just did it to a Jet Tiger. Its gun shot out the front of the tank. Like, the whole entire gun blocked
Right.
everything. I'm like,
So you
wow,
you can play darts with a Jag Tiger.
pretty much. I've
That's
By
That's
ammo
what
racking
you-
them.
I've also noticed more armor damage to the dead tank I actually hit. I hit I believe it was the event going on. I don't know why, an M3. I could tell where I hit him because there was a huge just chunk of his armor missing.
Yeah, they've improved hit decals.
Really? No, I haven't noticed that.
Yeah.
That's something I've been looking forward to. I want to see, when I roll past your dead carcass, where exactly I hit you.
I did see it once in the previous patch, actually. I was in a Tiger 2 and I shot a T-44, and he had a decal on the front of his tank. It was one of those Christmas ones. It was like a Russian Santa with a machine gun with a massive grin on his face. That I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I shot between the eyes of the decal, straight through the front of his front plate. I didn't realise this until later when I happened to go past his dead body, though.
Sadist.
Damn you, Santa.
Sadist.
One of my first few games in the Tiger 2, actually.
I'm actually playing the Tiger 2 105.
Oh, I haven't got that one yet.
It's I think it's actually a pretty good precursor to your modern day medium tank if you play it that way. Your main battle
Really?
tank. If you play it like a main battle tank, you constantly keep moving
Oh,
and you shift your weight slightly after each shot while you're waiting to reload. A lot of people will bounce off you, and that 105 does some damage.
I'd have got the impression it would... the Tiger 2 in general is quite a bit heavier than a modern day main battle tank.
It
It's
is,
slower.
but if you play it somewhat like a main battle tank, where you don't
Okay.
sit there and rely on your armor, and it does have mobility.
It has very strong armour anyway, though. I suppose the later one you're against bigger guns, though.
Yeah.
And I've only played the Tiger 2 with the 88mm gun. They're both nice tanks.
Oh, they are.
What
The
else? Can
Tiger
we...
2P has got that one weakness of if they shoot you at the very front of the curve, it's going straight through on your turret.
What else has been winding us up recently?
Everything.
Enduring
Rammers.
confrontation comes on for an hour or two,
Rammers.
and then it
Yeah.
goes again.
How about that sim with the tanks? And how you can only play what Gaijin says you can play.
I mean, I understand that is the fact that there's not a significant amount of sim players. I'd have to wait for 5 minutes to get a high tier sim match.
Thing is, before there wasn't
still do.
limited events like that. Well, you do if you're playing the popular nation.
Tier 5 sim, you still have to wait because everyone's playing Russian and no one's playing German.
Yeah, and think about
I
it
play
now.
German.
That's just
Tier
like
five.
No,
Leah's
that's not too
first
bad.
time when
Tier
it came
5
out.
is-
Sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, as
If you
well,
can get enough German.
it's even worse now, though, because you've got British, American, and Russian players,
All on
all
the
of
same
them
team.
playing against German. If you want to play German, you're getting a game immediately, but that's only if you play German.
It's only if you play German.
And you're then
Actually
stuck
prepared
with
to-
the maps that you're probably going to lose on.
This is why I say they should bring in Italian tanks, because then you got more cannon fodder.
Yeah, they beat
Yes.
too.
And also,
Um,
just diversify the German army a bit more, because if you're playing German, you could be up against one of 3 nations for tanks. But the other nations, they just need to know how to kill a German tank.
That is true.
So I'm happy
But-
they did what they did with realistic, where it's no longer nation on nation. It's pretty much
You'll be against one of or
Yeah.
both of the other 2 nations that you're not playing.
where it's like Germans and Americans versus Russians, which I could kind of see happening maybe
Yeah.
after the war. Russia decided to we're gonna take the rest of the world, and you're like, what's left of the German army is on the
Yeah.
American side.
Well, that
Or
did
even just
actually
as captured things.
that did almost happen.
Well, yeah.
I forget
America
what-
going on to into Russia,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I forget what the actual proper military strategy it was. But yeah, America and Britain actually had a plan of reuniting the German army, what was left, to fight with them to push against Russia to get them out of Europe. I forget what the actual plan was, but they were actually also going to drop atomic bombs on Russia too, but eventually it never happened. But there was an actual
goodness.
Operation Unthinkable,
plan.
wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Operation Unthinkable.
I couldn't remember if Operation Unthinkable was later though or not.
Nope, it was It would be right after the war.
1946, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking
So,
of
yeah.
which, why does my B-29 have a nuke?
Well, you gotta remember it's probably very touchy with Japan giving people nukes, because you're going to just suddenly start seeing a bunch of people bombing Japan with nukes.
They were told to surrender. I mean,
Yeah, that's one thing I do understand. It's like, it was history. We need to understand it was history.
was it a tough decision to make for Truman? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it the right one for the American people at
Debatable?
least?
People still debate that to this day.
I think we'll
Because-
debate it forever.
You gotta remember.
I firmly believe it would cost at least 500,000 to 1 million American lives to take the full country of Japan because of how powerfully willed the Japanese people are. That's why I respect the Japanese culture and the Japanese people, because they are an incredibly proud people and they will go down fighting tooth and nail for what they believe in. I think Americans can learn something from that. 2015 seems to be the year of butthurt and public opinion.
Yeah.
Just be like Putin. Putin for president.
He already is.
Well, I don't know.
President
You
of this
might
country, too.
You might just get that. Although
You know,
not
all
in
all
a
that
good
Russian
way.
bias and all.
Here's one thing I want to bring up before we move on from rants and raves. Thermodynamics. We all know this with Gaijin. You're on your awesome kill streak, and then that cheeky bugger with some stupid aircraft comes in and sets you afire, and you're unable to put that fire out. Even though you're going Mach chicken and a half in a dive, and your fire
And
is
your
still
engine's
not
cut
going.
off too, so you're not
Yeah.
pulling fuel out of the.
It-
Yeah, I
it-
feel you. It happens all the time in my Typhoons because of how the fuel tanks are placed. I'll go 400 miles an hour, since I'm American, I use miles. Go 400 miles an hour in a dive with no fuel being drawn from my tanks. I'm still on fire though.
Or how about this? You're flying your Russian year, I believe it's the year 2, and you get set afire. For first thing, the year is a diesel engine. God, that should not be happening.
Or
I can-
how I believe most of the yaks are actually made out of wood, right?
Yeah.
How you set them on fire and they go out faster than most of
Hey,
the
it's
other
that
countries.
Stalinwood.
Selenium blessed by the
Fire
mustache.
retardant. Yeah. All
Yeah,
that.
no, it's
Yeah.
been soaked in mustache fibers of Stalin's mustache.
Yeah, that's one thing I hope the developers really push and fix, because it gets so annoying, especially in a B-17. I personally am a bomber jockey. When I'm flying my bombers, it was known for bombers just to go into a nice shallow dive and cut their engines, and their fire would go out.
Bombers had suppression
Fire
systems.
extinguishers.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep,
fire
they did.
suppression
2
systems on
extinguishers
each
per
individual engine. Yeah, there was 2 of them for each individual engine.
Yeah, I just wish that would be implemented, because they've already done it with tanks. Why can't they do it with the bombers? They would
I'm still wondering, why?
Because actually, yes, people would say, oh, well, you're probably going to throw away the balance, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I'm a bomber, it's pretty already unfair when there's 17 yaks coming at me. Give me this ability, this power to at least stay alive longer and drop my payload.
You'd probably save the lives of 1,000 Condor crew within the first hour of gameplay.
Yeah.
Because the
How do you guys feel about the shadows? You know how they updated the shadows with most planes?
Yeah.
I feel like they're a lot easier to see until you actually look at them. If you keep them in your peripherals, surprisingly.
Yeah. I've been playing around with that, just trying to do the whole spotting mechanic.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. It is. I do feel it's more. I don't know. I think it might actually be me rather than the game. It's just a question of getting used to it. You know what I mean?
It is.
It's before you had these distinct, lovely black dots. Oh, yeah, there's a guy over there. He's not lit up. I haven't got a marker, but I know that he's over there. He's got to be over 8 kilometers away from me, or 5 kilometers, or wherever the spotting distance was going to be.
Good old spot.
But now it's this sort of this weird slight squiggle, and you've got to, if you don't look and catch it in time, he's gone behind a cloud and you're stuffed, or you think it's flak, and it
I
just
like
makes
that
you.
though.
Yeah, that's what I think. It makes you like look twice. It makes you sort of not paranoid, but it makes you think. Oh, you've got to think twice before you you commit yourself to a vector of like flying towards the enemy base or whatever you're doing. Got to keep your head on a swivel now.
Yeah, it
But
does give sim pilots a lot more immersion into the game.
Yeah.
Well, that's something else. Sim with bombers. Oh, when are we going to start getting more cockpits?
I think they worked on a B-25 cockpit.
It was
Yeah.
April 2013. They said we'd be getting them very soon.
Okay.
TM trademark that
Oh,
word.
Yes.
that's the good old very soon,
Valve time.
Well, yeah.
War Thunder and their coming soon talks. Wait,
That was
weren't
like
we
me and
supposed
World
to
of
get
Tanks.
British tanks like 2 months ago? But they
No.
said coming soon?
Wargaming
Self-lacing
pulled the same-
shoes coming
No,
soon.
Wargaming pulled the same thing Gaijin did with that. With British tanks, there was a tier 10 called the 4202. That was my first tier 10. I love the thing. Horrible tank. They buffed it. They said, yeah, we're going to get a new one for new tier 10s. 2.5 years later, it finally shows up.
But
Thanks
I
for promising me something.
yeah, because it's not like they're short-staffed and everything. Like, they have the people who can easily just implement it. It's probably just a lot of marketing campaign and trying to keep... You gotta remember, they are a free-to-play game. They live off of the people who do those premium purchases and download the game.
Give me a reason to buy your gold so I can
They
fast
live-
track to a vehicle.
They live off of the people.
Absorb their souls through the golden coins.
Suck their blood.
Remember that time when people could, like, totally abuse the Russian ruble? And just, like, do you not remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that was bad. I remember this one guy bought I think 100 million golden eagles or something
Whoa.
ridiculous, and
Yeah, because the ruble
Yeah.
was like a quarter. They messed it up, and they were charging the same number would be the ruble and the dollar. So people would go change their dollars into ruples and then spend that same amount and get like 3 times as much gold.
yeah.
It was crazy. Did I do it? I wish I did, but
Did they roll back to that or not? Did they let people keep what they
No,
put in?
they did come down with a hammer on people who did it. They understood the people who did it, oh, I'm gonna go buy just a bit so I can get this vehicle. But they can't, I think they let those people go, but the people who really abused it and got the ridiculous amount of gold, they came down hard on them. And
People who went
charged-
out and spent $600 in rubles.
I mean, technically, there's no taking that back. You're gonna ban me for spending Russian money on a Russian game. You don't even give me the Russian money back.
Speaking of bringing the hammer out, they did that quite recently with the when the last patch hit earlier in the month with the bomber. What was it? The raining bomber thing that we had.
Oh,
Where
yes.
Oh my
we had
God.
bombers slamming into the ground.
Everyone and their mother was doing it. It was ridiculous.
Thank God I disappeared while this was happening.
But I think they did get the hammer out, didn't they? I think if you'd been abusing it, didn't they give
24-hour ban.
was it 24-hour ban? Yeah, that was it. 24 hours. No War Thunder for you. To Gulag.
To some of the people that did it. Here's the thing. I did it 3 times as a testing sort of thing. Nothing bad happened to me. Another
Well,
guy
no.
did it twice. He got banned.
How much money have you spent on the
Okay.
game?
Ah, there's a good point. I've spent more than he has.
You're a fat American cow. You are a money cow.
To Gulag with you.
Pretty much buy your way out
No,
of the
I'm
gulag.
free for. I don't go to the gulag because I gave them a little bit of money.
Actually, maybe that was one of the
Bribe
criteria.
to avoid gulag.
They scanned all they looked at the list, right, okay, of all these people, who has premium vehicles, right, okay, oh, yep, right, he can go, he's to the Gulag, he can go, he's to the Gulag.
Well, if that's the case, I'm never going to go to the gulag as much money as I spent on this
Yeah.
damn game.
Talking about the Gulag, let's move on to the part that the viewers are probably waiting for this whole podcast, and that's the Q&A. The Q&A is the part of the podcast where we poll 10 questions from the comments or tweets that the viewers have left. Now, if you want us to use or pick your questions, you need to use the hashtag the briefing room in the formats on screen right now. Now, once you did that, we will pull 10 at random and hopefully your question will be answered. You guys have any other things you want to leave for the lovely viewers of YouTube?
I'll let you know how I crack on with from a first time sort of Russian aircraft Virgin as it was. I'll let you know how I get on. I'll let you know.
I don't
how
like
get
them. I think the Brits are better, but that's personal opinion.
Try the tanks as well.
I have all the tanks.
Try them anyway.
Try 'em.
Yeah.
There you got it. Try it. Just try it. Okay, now that's all for our show. Have a good day. See you in the next show.
Bye.
Catch you later.
Bye, Felicia.
See ya.